Welcome to the STARS program, seniors taking active roles in society. And now, here's your host, Anita Finley.
This is a very special interview because it's someone whom I really had great admiration for. She is a friend, but she is a real professional. Her name is Dr. Yolanda Camhi, C-A-M-H-I. And her company is ServiceSource. It's a home and community service organization. And if you want to find someone that has a big heart, she's it. So welcome to our show, Yolanda.
Anita, thank you so much. It's truly a pleasure to be on the air with you. I just love you and admire you for so many reasons, and I just thank you for having me on the show.
Well, likewise, you said it all for me too. So when I first met you, of course, you were in the same office building where I was, and I also got to meet your just special husband. And your husband is someone who just doesn't know what the word no is. And of course, you can explain what his challenges are, and then we can move on from that.
Definitely. My area of work for the last 20 years with ServiceSource, and even before that, another 8 years with other companies, has been in working with individuals with disabilities to help them live full and successful lives in their communities. And wouldn't you know, I ended up marrying someone who has a disability. But like you said, he does not consider himself disabled because he does really not impose any challenges on himself. And like you said, he doesn't know the word no. And that really is what our area of work is all about, is acknowledging and respecting the rights of people with disabilities to live, to work, to recreate, and to become successful in their lives in the communities that they live in. And so our agency, I'm just so blessed to be working at ServiceSource for the last 20 years, and I hope for many more. We are a leading nonprofit organization. We are in 10 states, including District of Columbia. We serve more than 17,000 individuals with disabilities every year through a range of employment, training, habilitation, housing, and other supportive services. A lot of what we do involves collaborating with other community agencies and other nonprofits in order to bring the best services needed for the persons that we serve, and to bridge any gaps in services that may exist that's holding them back from being all that they can be and doing all that they can do.
Well, Yolanda, let me ask you a question. When we talk about disabled, what does that mean, really?
Well, you know, I'm so glad you asked me that, because in the past, when I've tried to explain this, I have broken down the word, and you can see that the first three letters are dis, and then the rest of it is able. So a lot of people think of disabled as people who cannot do something. They have an area that they cannot do. And so there's been a lot of misconceptions, I want to say, about people with disabilities. Oftentimes, people who don't know or don't work in my field feel like a parent to them. They feel like, oh, they need help. They're people who cannot function. They're people who may be, physically or mentally handicapped. And I use that word to say that is actually a misconception. That's history. That's way back into history. We no longer use those words. We no longer think of people with disabilities as handicapped, because over the years we have made such great strides to know that people with disabilities can do many things and want to be full participating citizens in their communities. We believe at ServiceSource that each individual with a disability has the right to live, work, and recreate in their community, and to be included in every facet of society. Basically, we believe that what a person can do is more important than what a person cannot do.
Yes, that's so well said. So well said, Yolanda. I think I told you when we first met, and that's why I appreciated what you did, but I think you knew that I understood about the lady who lived in an iron lung. Do you remember my story?
Yeah, I think so, yes.
She lived in the iron lung from the time she was 10, and I met her, she was 30. And she was able to type with a stick in her mouth, and she was able to paint, and she had such a beautiful attitude. And I was a volunteer for her for about, I guess it was a year. I went to the hospital a day or, I don't know, 1 or 2 days a week, whatever it was. And there, she had a lot of volunteers, but I was a volunteer, and she was probably one of the most important people in my life, because whenever we see or think that the world is looking a little bit dark for us, and you think of a person like that, she did not know what no meant. She did not know what anything negative was. She was amazing, Yolanda.
That is just a perfect story to bring to the listeners, because really, when we talk about a person with a disability, or when we work with a person with a disability, we really need to look at the whole person. We need to listen to them carefully, find out what their goals and dreams are for their life. We should not impose what our goals or dreams we think they should have. And a lot of what we do involves assessing the barriers that they have in a way to try and develop strategies to knock down those barriers. That really is what our job is, so that they can do the things that they want to do. All of us have seen those videos out there of people that maybe had no legs and suddenly they have prosthetics, and now they're out skiing. All of us have seen videos of people who have overcome their disabilities. Sometimes they're athletes. And so these are excellent examples of people who have overcome their challenges. And for us, making the right connection with other community resources is a key. Is a key to what ServiceSource likes to do, is to network and work collaboratively with other agencies, other nonprofits, so that we can bring about choices to people with disabilities. And I use the word choices very pointedly, because people with disabilities need to have options and choices in their lives, just like everyone else. In the old model of working with people with disabilities, they would come in, and a counselor or an employment counselor would say, okay, well, let me give you a little test. And after that test, I'm going to tell you where you're going to go, and I'm going to tell you what you're going to do. And that's how it was for many years. And people with disabilities were held back very much, because there was the medical model was in operation. And I say medical model because when you go to a doctor, they assess your ailment, and they give you a prescription, and you dutifully go and get that medicine, and that's what you do. But that is not so anymore. We know now that choices are extremely important for people with disabilities, and that they have a right for to have choices, and for us to develop many choices for them, and not to impose our misconceptions upon them. I was once training people with disabilities at a restaurant, and like you said about your experience, that was one of the best experiences I ever had, because people came in with their application and wanting so badly to work at this restaurant. Well, most managers that would see someone, let's say, that had had a stroke and maybe had some challenges in what they could do would probably say, oh, no, don't come in here because this is fast food and you're not going to be able to do it. Well, being a trainer for that company helped me to allow them to try it, and lots of people overcame that challenge and were able to not only work there but become a valued employee for many years in that organization.
Well, I love what you said, because we know before someone was disabled and they were put in a box and they lived their life in that box as much as they could with. But now that we're doing all these, we're really looking at a person in a holistic way. But I guess my other question is, isn't it also important, besides your organization, of course, but that their family, their friends, that there's other supportive people in their lives?
That is so key. We all need support, and support is very key. And it has become one of the key questions I ask my clients is, do you have a supportive network? Do you have family? Do you have friends? Do you have places of worship? Do you have recreation in your life? Because that is so key to all of us. And so if I find that a client is home day after day and, that client is not receiving any kind of social stimulation, support from a family member, or have someone they could call in a case where they might be feeling down or they might need help in some area, then I really think that puts them at a great disadvantage. And so I try to help them brainstorm as to how to develop some natural supports in their community and even at their workplace. Everyone needs that. I have clients who maybe aren't working yet and have really good support systems, and their outlook in life is very positive, and I can just see the difference, in the ability of people to be successful in their life when they have support versus when they don't have support.
Absolutely. I mean, and then, of course, when that happens, they can wind up on drugs, they can wind up in a lot of situations. So it's probably very hard for family members to take on those responsibilities, because I have just recently heard of a person whose brother, I don't know if it was a brother or sister, these are adults, has Down syndrome, and the mother has just passed away, and the person lived with the mother. Now it's on the sister's, it's her responsibility, and it's very difficult.
Definitely. That's why it's so important for families like that to find out what resources are out there that can help them to provide services so that possibly their family member can be more independent. They'd be surprised. There is a program through Medicaid called a Med Waiver, and the Medicaid Waiver program allows services like companion care, cleaning, other services to make sure that some people who have severe disabilities could stay in their home and live in their community. So Medicaid is one program, one of many. There are other programs through the agency for persons with disabilities in the state of Florida that can provide supportive services. So I think a family like that needs to get involved with a case manager that can help them brainstorm on all the services that are available so that they don't end up in a hardship situation.
Yeah, that's very good advice. And when I talk to people like you, we know that there are so many. I don't know how many people would be called, and do we say challenged or disabled? What do we call people nowadays?
The politically correct terms now are physically challenged or mentally challenged. Always thinking of using the person first. So it could be, if you want to say a person with a disability, that's fine because you use the word person first. Now, if someone wants to talk about someone with a disability, they shouldn't say, "Oh, that person, the disabled," because again, that has the connotation of, "Oh, they can't do something. They can't." So it's person first language.
Okay. Yeah, that's good. I see. That's the thing. We all want to be so careful about how we say things, not to hurt anyone's feelings. But oh my, this is a very, very big subject. How long have you been doing this, Yolanda?
I've been working in this field with ServiceSource for 20 years. Before that, I worked for a restaurant chain for 4 years, actually 5 years, doing some training of persons with disabilities. And before that, I worked with a state another 4 years. So really, it's been close to 30 years, and I really love my work because when I see someone who really needs those connections, who really, is wanting to participate fully in their community and are just not being included because they don't have the right connections, they're not sure who to call, they're getting bad service, frankly, with some agencies. I'm just more than happy to sit in and hear all that they've been through and come up with some goals with them. A lot of times what I do with people is brainstorming. I can give you an example of a brainstorming. Yesterday, I spoke to a young lady who lives at home, and she's not able to sustain work for more than maybe 15 minutes to 30 minutes at a time. So for her, we cannot find her a job in the community because she would lose it right away. So we started to just brainstorm, and we came up with an idea that she could run from her home service. She could be her own employer and have a referral service for people who need someone to care for their pet while they're away. And so we just began to develop this dream for her that she could have her own business at home, and she really loved it. And she even started elaborating the business in her mind. She could do pet sitting referrals. She could do not only dogs, but cats. By the time we hung up, this girl had a dream, and she had a goal that she could work and that there is something she can do to make a little extra money aside from her disability check. And so really this is what it's all about.
Yeah, I was thinking about that with pets, and that's right. If someone has physical problems or if they have mental problems, you can do different kinds of things. Well, are there a lot of people like you employed throughout the country?
Definitely. There are many agencies, beginning with the state of Florida, Vocational Rehabilitation. That's one of the main agencies. That one is sponsored through our taxes, and they're wonderful. They really are wonderful, and they rely on us, the sister agencies, if you will, to work side by side and collaborate on creating more services that show the respect and that show the type of approach to helping persons with disabilities that is now sanctioned by the key providers, which is to show respect for what the person wants to do, to be open to their ideas and suggestions, to help them to follow up if something isn't working, and to just be a support and a facilitator, but not to dictate what they should do. And that's definitely what ServiceSource is all about and why I love working with this agency. We now at ServiceSource in Florida, we actually are in 10 states, and we have a wonderful new service for seniors with disabilities in Fairfax, Virginia. And we are interested in researching down here in the Tri-County area, in Dade, Broward, and Palm Beach, to see if there may be an opportunity for us to do this. And basically is to provide case management for seniors who are disabled, these persons with disabilities we've been working with who are now seniors and need services. Perhaps they want to attend a senior service center. And we want to be sure that, A, they are included, are being invited and know about these senior centers, and B, that once they are there, we want to be sure that they can fully participate and that there are services there so that if they need a little modification, let's say that someone's playing bingo and our person needs modification so that they can fully participate in the bingo game, we would provide a service to make sure that anybody who's having difficulty can more fully participate. And we do know that all of us, as we age, start sometimes losing maybe a little bit of our hearing or a little bit of our eyesight. So these services that can be provided by these case managers and specialists can also help everyone else that's there.
Yep. It's interesting, isn't it, that unless you are affected yourself personally, these are just words and it's just different. And so you have made this so clear for us. And I think what I would suggest, too, to people, if you do find someone who lives in your neighborhood or goes to your religious organization or something, that maybe you make a friend of them or the family and you can help in some way. And I don't know how that all works, but I believe that there must be a lot of self-esteem problems with people who are challenged. And if they thought that there were people around who just wanted to play cards or they wanted to help them or read a book to them, it could be almost a love fest.
Absolutely. I think it's a great thing. I think people shouldn't be afraid, just like they meet anyone in their community, to go up to a person with a disability and just say, hey, and if that person is open and wants to be friendly and maybe become friends, I think that's a great thing. And they will find out that people with disabilities are just like anyone else. They have the same needs. They have the same issues and problems as anyone. And so I think that they would find it, yes, very fulfilling. I had a manager at one of the restaurants who was very hesitant at bringing on board my trainees who had hearing impairment. And I can tell you, he learned quickly that they're just people and became very friendly, especially with the one young man that he hired, and became so friendly that they started going out bowling together and hanging out and just listening to music. He learned that people with disabilities are just people, like anyone else, and they just want to be respected and they just want to be included.
And how is this working with education? Do the school systems, are they working? And I know that your area is not with children, right? You're really in adult care.
Right. I do work in adult care, but I do often hear of what's going on in the area of education, and I think that they have made great strides too to make sure that each child with a disability has every opportunity to learn and to be all that they can be. And I do see that they are very well respected. The families are finding more success with the school system than in the past. And once they finish their high school, I do see a lot of services in community colleges and in universities for disabled students to continue the good work that the primary schools are providing so that people can continue to get an education, which is so extremely important. People who have training and education are obviously so much more successful at finding work, at earning a living income, and we do have a lot of successes that we see because the person received training and education, while they after they made their goals of what they wanted to do, so they can live just as full and successful lives as anyone else.
Yeah. So I just want to introduce you again because this is very fortunate for us to have Yolanda Camhi on our radio show. She really is very busy. She always has people she's working with and they need her. Sometimes she works, into the late evenings, weekends. I mean, I used to see her at our office. She was always working, but she always had a smile on her face. And there's something about Dr. Camhi who is unforgettable. That's what we always say about Yolanda.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So much, Anita.
Well, you are. You really love your work. And I can see why you're effective because, see, you said something before, and I guess we're running out of time, but when someone comes in and they're disabled in some way, they're used to people being not as kind to them, but you are kind, and I guess we really have run out of time. And I thank you so much, Yolanda. You did a great job today.
Thank you, Anita. Thank you so much.
It was my pleasure. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.